What is growing in your soul? Of all human emotions, bitterness is the one you ought to fear the most. It is emotional cancer. More of us struggle with bitterness than we think. I have been thinking about examining the garden of our own heart, what we allow to grow in our soul, and discuss 4 attributes of bitterness out of Hebrews 12. 1. Bitterness begins with tiny seeds. Starting in verse 12, the writer of Hebrews described a discouraged believer as a runner on a track that's becoming exhausted, all because of people. v. 14. People can upset us, offend us, and especially hurt us, even when they don't intend to. But we often fail to see that God uses difficult people to correct our course and chasten us, verses 5 to 11. Instead, we allow whatever a person said or did to hurt us to become a tiny seed planted in our heart that, when it grows, leads to bitterness. 2. Bitterness requires the right kind of soil. Verse 15 says we ought to be looking carefully lest anyone fall short of the grace of God. Now, we can't outrun the grace of God, Romans 5:20, but we can come short of it or lose sight of it. When we forget how gracious God was to each of us, then we cease being gracious to other people, and our hearts become susceptible to bitterness. 3. Bitterness develops deep roots, looking carefully, lest any root of bitterness springing up cause trouble, verse 15. People who let a seed of bitterness grow in the soil of their hearts eventually develop a root system. And while this root system is hidden, it can be destructive. It will choke off our spiritual and emotional life, and it will hold back the power of God and block Him from moving. That's because hatefulness and holiness cannot dwell in the same heart. 4. Bitterness will produce bad fruit, lest any root of bitterness springing up cause trouble, and by this many become defiled, verse 15. When the root becomes the fruit, springing up through the soil, it grows in 2 different directions, toward you, causing trouble, and toward others, who are defiled by it. It can ruin your relationship with God, see 1 John 4:20. I'm sure there's something in your past that you could use as an excuse to become bitter, but don't let that hurt take root in your heart and begin to grow. Don't water it with self-exalting thoughts. Don't fertilize it with other people's sympathies. Whatever pain you've experienced, however anyone has hurt you, bring it to the Lord. It's yours, God. I give it to you. Don't you think God can take all the bitter things that have happened to you and make you a better person because of them? Instead of letting that seed grow and branch out a root system, sink your life deep into the rich, inexhaustible soil of God's love. Life will go from bitter to better.